Welcome back YouTubers to my channel of an everyday life of an Aspie. If you're new to my channel, I welcome you all. I'm Aspie and I'm today going to be bringing out to you as many topics as I can for you all based on autism related topics, because as you are aware, Autism Awareness Month is coming up, so hopefully you'll be enjoying these and learn something along the way as I educate you all and mentor you throughout this and guide you through it. So as you're aware, basically I've been sharing some bits and pieces of my food for thoughts and whatnot, and I thought right now, since there's been a bit of discussion about certain bits, to bring some out. So this one's all about the Autism Spectrum Disorder, to maybe remove the D in it. Feel free to comment below before I begin this for anyone that is on the spectrum disorder or has heard of this term, and do you think that the disorder should be removed completely? What's your food for thought about this, so that we can get this discussion going, so that we can keep it up and coming. So as we know, once we receive a diagnosis, whatever age we're at in our life, pretty much we tend to be, wondering for the hell of it, of the everyday symptoms that comes with this diagnosis of autism or autism spectrum disorders. And now and again we tend to get split up or segregated into different parts of the spectrum, with as a host, hence now that the term autism spectrum is used, as well as based on differences in our traits, characteristics, personality, symptoms and the like that comes with the territory of this. For example, to gain a more better understanding to what I'm trying to share here based on the everyday differences that you all may have heard of, the terms maybe high functioning autism, low functioning autism, independent versus dependent, verbal and non-verbal autism and the like, And again, many people, especially the medical experts per se, tries to split us up to these different categories because of these differences of our traits and characteristics that, shines out that they think, match fit to that description of that diagnosis, be it, autism spectrum disorder, autism, Asperger's, and the like. Within saying this though, however, with some of this that does get done based on the everyday diagnosis, however, the community of ours, regardless of the autistic community that I've been into and stuff, aren't really cohesive and really, happy about, maybe having these subgroups or segments, in the community, because that they like to be categorized or even label us by the medical team, based on these, differences, and based on also these labels that some medical experts out there tend to label us that, we can't be fixed, we're too broken, or whatever else, and that can be damaging for us on the autism spectrum that I've heard about, of all these labels especially. Despite this though, it's one other fact here that we are, after getting a diagnosis, however, that we are put into a box of sorts, of categories and different characteristics, etc., based on the everyday symptoms, and also based on our everyday differences used within the terminology based on the autism manual, or also based on the autism spectrum disorder. As I said before, it's under the, umbrella of different diagnoses, such as I've shared, Asperger's, autism, PPD-NOS, PPDA, and the like. Although we have these labels of these different diagnoses, however, to some degree, we may fall into, under one autistic spectrum disorder family. Like every family member of autism spectrum disorder, however, community, we do have our differences like anyone, along with the similarities that make us unique, gifted, talented, special, and the like, in our own very special way that makes us to who and what we are today. Sometimes some of us may embrace, these differences. Some of us may not like our differences, because some of us on the spectrum may think that we're a burden to others regardless. But as I shared, I've shared it in one of my videos last year in the Autism Awareness Month, that I embrace it. I try to, accept for who and what I am. So basically, I've got that somewhere about, embracing who and what I am. I'll link it in the iBar bin me now, as well as in below, so you can actually follow on to what I'm sharing, so that you can get to know me more. because everybody's different, as we know. In saying this though, however, despite the similarities or differences, basically, you know, unfortunately, very sadly, we are seen under this umbrella term of ASD, and people also in the close community still despises us for our individual differences and criticises us not to be the same or normal as everyone else. Yet again, I can't stress it enough though, what is normal? Despite that, no matter how people see us, that we are not forever clones, aliens, etc., we are still humans after all. Duh, obviously, we won't be like anyone else though, however. So, I want to quickly just recap basically from what I was reading about, you know, removing the D or disorder out of the word, you know, autism spectrum altogether. Is it worth it or whatever? And hopefully in the next piece of it, I'll share briefly my uptake of it. As I said before, basically, like, well, not before, it needs to be done and whatnot. In saying this though, however, with this, there has been a bit of debate from the medical experts, as also the members in the autistic community or the groups I've been in on Facebook, based about removing the word disorder altogether, due to that this word implies that we aren't functioning individuals, or even it has been defined as 1, a state of confusion, 2, disrupt the systematic functioning or neat arrangement of some sorts. So Autism Spectrum Australia, however, created a simple yet powerful initiative, I believe. So they're now deciding basically to drop the D from ASD to promote positive language around autism, like we should be. So that's why I'm here today, to share as many videos for this Autism Awareness Month. Right, in saying this, Aspie embraces language as a tool for social change by dropping the word disorder. Aspie has set out to provide positive messaging about autism with its latest campaign, Drop the D from the word ASD, or Autism Spectrum Disorder, I should say. As part of the campaign, Aspie has removed the disorder from Autism Spectrum Disorder in its communications in response to growing feedback from the autistic community that the term is experienced as a negative and restrictive kind of response. From now on, Aspie will refer to people with autism or people on the spectrum, autism spectrum. Let's clarify. While awareness of autism within Australia is slowly improving, however, acceptance and understanding remains a challenge for individuals on the spectrum and their families. And hopefully, in the near future, I believe we should be able to remove the word disorder for all worldwide, I believe. Defining people with their disability often isolates or segregates individuals. It focuses on the disability, not the whole person. Just the disability, just that. It can create a stigma in the community as well as some form of stereotyping, defining basically. And this can lead to many possible outcomes, including delayed diagnosis. Language is a powerful tool and instrument in forming attitudes and beliefs. It not only reflects society's perceptions, but also determines and prescribes them. By eliminating negative language, however, and moving community attention away from the word disorder, we can better understand, celebrate, and empower of those on the autism spectrum and their families, despite the everyday differences and challenges that comes along with it. A person's disability shouldn't be the focus of that person's description, however, said Aspie CEO Adrian Ford. All too often, autism is portrayed as a struggle and something to be overcome. By dropping the word disorder, however, Aspie hopes to encourage understanding all aspects for the differences of people on the spectrum. It's something to overcome. By dropping the word disorder, Aspie hopes to encourage understanding acceptance from the spectrum. One way of tackling this is to drop the word disorder. Terms such as these can portray people with disabilities as members of another or outsider group, separating them from the mainstream. Aspie believes, however, that disorder is outdated, constructive, and no longer appropriate. This removes the collective feature disorder sufferer and focuses instead on the everyday individual. The one exception will be where the term refers to the diagnostic category of autism spectrum disorder in a technical context and with reference to the diagnostic manual, statistical manual, I should say, of mental disorders, volume 5. MOVE is another example of Aspie's commitment to inject positive awareness into the national conversations about autism. Following the launch of Aspie's positive awareness campaign, A Different Brilliant, in November last year of 2017, celebrating the differences of people on the spectrum. Ignoring the word disorder because under the DSM it's valid, A.1 they don't use. DSM-5 should be just DSM-5. When the change was made in 2013, they did away with the Roman numerals for the ongoing numbering systems. It is now recognised that autism is a spectrum, meaning that everyone is unique and sits at a different point on the spectrum. Maybe a link to something like this for the spectrum to avoid the concept of a linear construct, which I'll link up a video that will explain more of what I'm saying. For this reason, intervention should be based on the assessment of individuals' strengths and difficulties rather than just the diagnosis on its own. Including this statement implies that one would be able to get interventions without a diagnosis. My guess is this is really so unless one goes privately. Not sure if it's easily available for adults even privately at the moment. Under children though, however, social interaction, they may play alongside with their peers rather than just their peers alone. Some parents don't realise this is a sign of a certain age and assume that playing alongside is the same as playing with. So this quickly ends a quick video based on the autism spectrum disorder to remove the D or not, for the first part at least. Smash the like button, comment below, feel free to follow me on my social medias, feel free if you haven't done so, if you want to keep up to date with what I'm doing right now, hopefully on the daily leading up to Autism Awareness Month, to subscribe. Feel free to turn on the notification bell so you can keep up to date, because it's much appreciated. So in all for the do, guys, thanks for support, thanks for watching, do what love what do. Until next time, Aspie signing out. I'll see you again soon. Ciao for now.